hey, these are my clear lines in the sand, and I'm not going to cross it one way or the other. I'm, going to follow the Lord no matter what.
Seeking the Lord first does not mean, okay, I go to church on Sundays. That's not seeking anything.
Just as an example for the audience, that I'm just going to let them know this. I used to get my chores in an email in the morning, okay?
And then we're going to pray from 8:15 to 8:30, and then we're going, oh, jeepers, I missed one Sunday. I need to do penance or something. That's not the issue.
Right, of course.
Yes, right. And we just need to just come to Jesus and say, you know what? I'm carrying these burdens. They're too heavy. And you said that your yoke is easy and your burden is light.
Welcome everyone to the Revictions podcast. This is episode 47, and we're doing something a little bit different today. Today I've got my dad joining us, who's been just an incredible example for me in particular in terms of just what it means to be a Christ follower, and I appreciate that about you, Dad. I think that's
sure.
There's many things to look up to you about, and that's definitely at the top of the list, just in how you carry yourself in that regard. So I want to take the time to...
Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I want to take the time to talk to you and capture this moment and just kind of dive in a little bit to your journey as far as following the Lord and what it's meant for you and how it's kind of shaped your life so far.
Sure.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to get into really is your testimony and hearing that and kind of getting an understanding of how you even came into your relationship with God and how that all came about, because I know some of it's kind of connected to mom and things like that, and a huge impact with that. So I just wanted to hear from your side how that went.
Okay. It's a very long testimony, so I would try to abbreviate it a little bit.
Yeah.
So long story short, me and your mom, we were living together. And your mother had an encounter with the Lord, and she came home one day and she just said, "Get out." She said, "I'm serving God.
Yeah,
you're not going to serve God. You have to leave." So
she was like, "He's a lost cause, but you need to go."
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was able to negotiate a settlement, and that settlement was, okay, tell you what.
Yeah.
Why don't we just, we can sleep apart. Let's find a church we can go to, and then we can all find God together. Mm-hmm. So long story short, we ended up at Lakewood Church, and I got saved at Lakewood Church.
Okay.
And on the way back to the car, I got inside the car, and I told Anna, I said, "Anna, we can't do this." And she said, "We can't do what?" I said, "We can't be living together." I said, that's just not right. I just got saved, right?
Right.
We can't be living together.
How did she react to that? Was she like, "I told you"?
So she was just stunned. She didn't. Yeah. She was speechless. Mm. So I got home that day, made some phone calls, and called some friends to see where I can move into. Mm. And one of my friends said, "Yes, you can move in with me." Packed up my stuff and moved out.
Wow.
So that's kind of how that was the reality of me just really getting saved. Mm-hmm. When God says He will write His laws in our hearts and inscribe them on our minds, it was there. It was all there.
Right.
So a few months after that, maybe about 8 months later, your mom and I, we got married. So, but that whole thing needed to be right from the very beginning.
Right. I think it's really cool because in both the examples with you and with mom, as soon as it came to the Lord, it was like you had the immediate realization of, okay, hey, what we had going on, like we can't do that anymore.
Exactly. That's exactly where she was.
Yeah.
And when I got saved, that's exactly where I was.
I think that reflects something what you mentioned, the laws being written on our hearts.
Yes.
Because obviously, I'm just going to make an assumption, neither you nor mom up to that point had read the Bible at all or really been a part of church, right?
Not really.
Yeah.
I've had some Jehovah's Witnesses come by from time to time. We would study a little bit, but that really was nothing.
Yeah. So there's no like codified teaching to show you how you were living was.
Absolutely not.
It was just the Holy Spirit convicting you, essentially.
100% the Holy Spirit.
I think that's amazing. And I think that happens in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But how in the same way we can kind of like stifle the Holy Spirit to kind of go along with the lifestyle that we wanted. Mm-hmm. When you have a dramatic experience like you and mom had, it was just so very evident of like, okay, we got to reshape this from the bottom up kind of deal.
Exactly. That's exactly how it was.
And and get it right. I've always found that to be extremely fascinating and really cool. What was your like thought process as mom, came through the door and immediately she's just kind of flying off the handle, for, a better term to describe it, but just kind of like, hey, get out of here. Like what was kind of going through your head? Like, do you think like, did I mess up? Like, did something happen?
No, it was quite dramatic and traumatic because our relationship was just so good.
Oh, wow.
And so we got along well, got along fine, communicated well. Everything was just completely, it was very nice.
Yeah.
And so to go to very nice to someone walk in the door while I'm practicing my saxophone in the middle of practice saying, get out. You have to leave now.
Yeah.
That was, it was very unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I always try to like put myself in your shoes. Like if that happened between like Kaylin and I,
right.
Like, I don't know how I would react. I'd be like, what are you talking about
exactly.
right now? Like
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a drastic shift, immediate 100% drastic. And all I knew was that something had happened to Anna. I don't know what it was. Something happened. It's deep and it's real.
Do you think that in the way that she approached that and it was just like, okay, hey, we got to do something different here. Do you think that's what had like the most, I guess, leading cause or leading indicator to want you to make a decision to say, okay, I'm going to take you seriously and figure out what's going on here? Or what took you from point A to point B? Point A being, I hear what you're saying. Point B being, let's try and find a church. Like what took you that extra step to you wanting to think about things differently and, discover if, what the heck, mom's getting onto when it comes to these things?
It was my love for her. And because of my love for her, I was willing to say, okay, let's see what we can do. That love made me willing to at least, pursue God.
Wow. I think that's really cool. What were a few situations after coming to Christ? And obviously it's been a long time since then. How long has it been actually? What, 30, 40 years?
1982.
1982. So 42 years.
42 years.
Wow.
Right.
So 42 years walking with the Lord. I'm sure there's been a bunch of different situations where the Lord has directly intervened in your life in one way or another, and maybe even saved you from a few different things. Do you have anything that comes to mind that was very explicit and a very real moment when the Lord intervened in behalf of your life?
From an intervention standpoint, there's really two, and both of them have to do with my corporate background with MCI Telecom. So when I started with MCI Telecom back in 1984, I was just, I just had strong work ethic that came from my parents, right? Just work hard, do the right things, just try to excel. That's just kind of built in my DNA. So during that process, the Lord would give me ideas. He would give me word of knowledge. He would just give me all kinds of things that I normally just wouldn't know on my own. And so I would implement those things in the job. Next thing I know is that my boss would put me up for promotion. So I wasn't seeking promotion. I wasn't looking for anything. Next thing you know, I'm supervisor, and I'm supervisor over a Texas group of people.
Wow.
And every one of those individuals are more senior than I am.
Wow.
And so, and as each year went on, the Lord continued to promote and elevate me. I wasn't seeking it. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't even desiring it. But that was something that He would continue to do, And then moving from Houston to Atlanta to take over a business unit that they wanted me to take over, I initially turned the job down because I didn't want it, didn't need it, was happy in Houston. Everything was hunky-dory. Why do I need to come and take over a business unit responsible for $600 million and have all the stress and hassle when I'm perfectly happy where I am now?
Right.
So I turned it down, but later on I feel like the Lord said for me to take it. So I took it, we moved to Atlanta, and the Lord just continued to elevate me. So to the point to where here it is, I'm in this big major unit, number one in the country, and I look back and I said, Lord, I wasn't looking for this. I wasn't striving for this, but you did this. But along the way, each promotion, it put me in positions where I did not know what to do or how to handle certain situations.
Right.
So I was really desperate and really leaning on the Lord, saying, Lord, how do I do this? Mm-hmm. And he would answer me every single time. Every single time he would show me what to do. It would astound myself. And I guess my superiors saw something going on because they continued to just promote me over and over. So that's kind of one major intervention where the Lord was just kind of walking me through things, especially in areas that I just did not have the knowledge or the skill to navigate in. The second one is, I would say, is profound from the standpoint of, so here I am, now I'm the top executive for my business unit in the city of Atlanta, making all this money. And then when the scandal between MCI and WorldCom took place, I decided, you know what? I'm done with corporate. I don't want to do corporate anymore. My passion is music, and I wanted to step out in faith and pursue music. Now, my obstacles were this. I worked really hard at MCI and WorldCom,
right,
and I wanted to set aside a nest egg for all of you guys.
right.
So I built up a nest egg, which in today's terms was somewhere around $6.5 million in terms of retirement and 401k. And but when the scandal happened, most of that $6.5 million went down to about, in today's terms, went down to about $500,000.
Wow.
So that was a big loss.
Right.
So I stepped away from that, saying, okay, you know what? I've got some money in the bank, set aside a little bit of 401k left. Nothing from my stock options left because stocks went down to zero. So I've got about 5 years. I can make it in something in 5 years. And 5 years went by. Nothing was made. There was no money.
Yeah.
And you remember these days where, the lights would be cut off all the time.
Yeah.
Water would cut off all the time.
Yeah. Gas
would be cut off. Cell phones, anything that could be cut off was cut off.
Right.
So we were going through those periods of times. Then we got behind on our mortgage. So now, going fast forward, so now I'm 2 years behind in mortgage payments. 2 years.
Right, yeah. That's...
And 2 years and 3 months behind in mortgage payments. So now foreclosure proceedings start. So long story short, we went through 7 separate foreclosure proceedings, and the Lord intervened in every single one of them.
Wow.
This one got canceled, this one got postponed, this one got canceled, and it just happened. It's that in itself is another story. So that continues to go, and finally I was just at the lowest point of low. And I said, Lord, if there's any way possible that I can do music without having to go back to corporate, please show me how to do that. I mean, I was at zero. I was ready to go. I'll go anywhere. Walmart, Quick Trip, Racetrack, Home Depot. It didn't really matter. I was like, Lord, if there's any way I can do music, please show me.
Yeah.
Before I even finished the prayer, he began to show me what to do. And I began to do those things. And referrals would come in, and my phone would ring, and people would say, hey, I saw you at this event. Hey, are you available? I heard this. I was looking for some entertainment. This person told me to call you. And things began to happen. And all of a sudden, the Lord took me from zero, no money for marketing, no money for advertising, no money for business cards, no money for social media, no money for anything. He took me from that to where music is now completely sustaining me all on its own.
Wow. So just that's obviously two totally different career pathways.
It is.
The corporate ladder.
Yes.
Corner offices in Atlanta type deal, and then now you're doing music.
Right.
And this is all live production. This isn't like recording your own music and trying to sell tracks. You're performing for events mostly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Freelance musician doing events all over the city.
Right. And what I think is so interesting is in the corporate side of things, you saw very quick, very immediate success. Just time after time after time.
Mm-hmm.
They kept on elevating you, different positions, different opportunities.
Yes.
And obviously God was steering that pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you had the everything that happened with MCI and telecom, right?
Yeah.
And just crumbled the company. You left that world, started to pursue music.
Mm-hmm.
In that transition, was that something you wanted to do, or is that something God was pushing you in that direction to begin?
I really feel like the Lord was leading me in that area
Mm-hmm.
because music has always been a passion in my heart.
Right.
So even as a telecommunications executive through MCI, once people found out I play saxophone, whenever we had our big major corporate events, they would bring me in to play saxophone as part of the entertainment.
Yeah.
So that was happening even during MCI.
Okay. Well then, because I know that we tend to build these ideas in ourselves, like it's like, hey, I feel like God's leading me in this direction, and we expect immediate results, immediate success.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, in your corporate side of things, that's how it was, and then you left that corporate side of things. From the timeline you gave, it was about 5 to 7 years before you really started to pick up some traction.
Mm-hmm.
So in that leeway, that downtime of the 5 to 7 years, were you ever thinking like, okay, Lord, did I make the right decision here? Was this the right call? Because obviously you didn't have that immediate, success and build up into building the network that you have today. It took a long time to get there. So I guess, how would you kind of reason with, even if the Lord has called you in a certain pathway, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see that immediate success by your own definitions
Sure.
as a human.
Right.
And maybe the Lord has to take you through some things to teach you and coach you and train you and build up your faith to take you into that next phase. But how would you kind of reason with helping people understand that even the Lord's might leading you in a certain direction, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see that immediate success that you've already put into your own mind kind of deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I wasn't looking for immediate success. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Secondly, I've known for a long time that there's something about music that the Lord wanted to express through me.
Mm.
So for whatever reason, that's always been there. It's been in my DNA. I just could never let it go. Mm. I just did not know how it was going to be expressed or manifested. I did not know.
Right.
So during the hard and lean times of music, lights being cut off and stuff, it's like I never really had any doubt that music was going to be a part of my future. I never had any doubt about that. Mm. Just going through some hard times. Yeah. And even during that time, I was like, okay, well, I guess I just need to start putting in some applications. So I put in applications in different places because, it's like, hey, this isn't working. I need to do what I need to do. So I started that process, but the Lord shut all those doors down. He shut them all down.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. But when I peel back the onion, things began to turn for me when the Lord kind of showed me that during my corporate years, there were things that I just did not know how to do. And so I really had to rely on the Lord to show me, Lord, okay, I don't know how to do this. Now I'm over this Texas group. These guys are more senior than I am. They promoted me over people who are smarter than me.
Right.
So that creates a dynamic in itself with the team that I'm supposed to be managing. Yeah. Lord, how do I do this? Mm-hmm. So he began to show me some stuff. But he began to show me that all of these different levels of promotions, which I didn't ask for any of them. I was completely happy where I was. He began to show me that I had a dependency on him. So now I'm out of corporate and I'm going to do music. Well, I know how to do music. I'm an accomplished player.
Yeah.
I know music. I can read, write, arrange, compose stuff for entire symphonies. So I'm on the races all on my own until I realized, Lord, I really need you. And so the Lord began to show me that, well, when I come to him with the same dependency that I had with MCI, he showed me the contrast.
Right.
That I did not have that same dependency in music that I had with MCI. And it's like, ooh. And when I began to really look to him, that's when things really began to happen.
Well,
he began to speak to me. Lord, I got it. Let's do this together. And it began to happen.
Wow. That actually reminds me. So you put me onto the book Spiritual Leadership by Henry Richard Blackaby.
Yes.
And one of the examples they gave in there, which I think was just very profound, was they had a church who wanted to host an event. I think it's for like Easter or something like that, or something in the springtime. Yeah. And so they decided a few months beforehand that, hey, everyone pray on it, and we'll get back together in a few months and we'll kind of figure out where the Lord is leading us. So the one person was like, hey, I feel like the Lord was telling me over and over again, park. Another person got together and said, hey, I feel like the Lord's been telling me we need to have T-shirts. And another person came together, we need to have, food. And the person that came together, hey, we can get these musicians that are in town during this time. And they all brought it together and said, okay, I think the Lord's wanting us to host an event at this park. We're bringing the shirts, bringing the food, bringing the music, bringing it all together. It was a huge success. And then that following Sunday, they had more people, they had more energy in the church, more new people in the congregation. It's a great idea. Next year comes along, and they have the same meeting, and they say, hey, we're going to do the event again.
We know how to do this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Say, hey, let's do the event again. We know how to do this. Let's execute.
Right.
And the key difference was between the first time and the second time was the first time, the Lord told them to do that event for that specific purpose.
Right.
The second time they said, oh, we got it now. Like, we can do it. we don't need to consult the Lord. We just need to go. We can do it again. And one of the quotes he gives in the book is, success can close a mind faster than prejudice. And I was like, that is just insane when you try to think about that, because we're always taught to repeat success.
Right.
But then again, we start moving into the mindset of, well, I know how to do it, so I'll do it on my own strength.
Sure.
But then your example here in your testimony is saying, sure, you can do it on your own strength, but that's not what the Lord wants. He wants us to depend on him to take us where he wants us to go.
Right.
And I think that's just to me, it's just a good reminder in general, because we can get trapped into those mindsets. We like being comfortable. We don't like going and doing new things. And obviously the Lord's going to take us down those challenging roads and pathways so that we learn to depend on him. And I mean, we learn that over and over again in the Bible. Right. But I think that's a very, very stark lesson to draw between those two, between the corporate and the music. And so during all that time, you would have been developing, relationships and connections between different people, getting plugged in with different churches, I imagine, with different places you were, traveling around to. So, and at this point, families involved, right? Because you would have, by the time you came to Atlanta, we had all of us, right? Me, Tamara, the boys. So how would you say was your approach in finding a good Christian network, the church? Like, what were things that you were looking for in terms of, hey, this is something I want my family to be a part of? And then on the other side of that is, how did you find good, mentors to kind of disciple you and things like that? Did you find good mentors? How was that process for you?
So finding a church, especially when we came here, it was really the Lord led us to the churches that he wanted us to go to. Because we didn't have a clue. I mean, we moved here and we didn't know anyone.
Right.
And so I don't remember who Anna met or spoke with, but told her about this one church, Northgate Church. So she went to the church and liked it. Took all you guys there. And at that time, I was working about 110 hours 120 hours per week on average.
I remember that.
Yeah, on average.
Yeah.
So she said, I found a church for us, and, this is where I think we need to go. So I said, okay, great. So I remember that one Sunday, I decided, well, I'll just work half a day, 12 hours on that Sunday. And so went to church and just really loved it. It was just, we knew that this is where the Lord led us. We just knew that. And so it was great. So I had to, make some changes on my Sunday schedule to take time off on Sundays to go to church and stuff, So the Lord just really led us there, The friendships and the relationships that we developed from that church is kind of where the mentorship and the fellowship and stuff came, So, the men there, the women there, we were straight up accountable. Somebody would do something stupid, and somebody would be in your face to call you out on it. It was like that.
Yeah.
And so it was good. So from a church standpoint, it was for us. It was how the Lord has kind of led us from different churches.
Do you think that's something that's missing in today's church about being called out for, in your words, doing something stupid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 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 We need men to be men, women to be women and stuff, And for some reason, the accountability piece in churches is not. It's something that I'm not sure what it is. But even where we go right now, Mission for Life, it's people know straight up. We're going to go by what the Word says,
right?
And if anything comes up, it's like the Word says, okay, you go to your brother and try to make amends and stuff, So, but there's straightforward accountability, and it's been like that pretty much for the church that we've been here.
So you, at first coming to Georgia from Texas, you'd kind of got into workaholic mode. So you weren't usually going to church on Sundays until Mom found a good spot, readjusted your schedule, right? Is that correct?
No, it's not correct.
Oh.
My workaholic mode was for pretty much most of my career with MCI.
Right.
Yeah, it's just that when I was in Houston, I was only doing about 80 hours a week.
Only 80, yeah.
When I came to Atlanta, because they had to revamp this particular business unit, then I went to 110, 120.
Okay. So that's what kind of took away your Sundays time, is that? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So how would you say that kind of impacted you at first in terms of just your walk overall, taking that time away from Sundays and being less plugged into a church body? Do you think that had a big effect on you? And the reason why I ask is because I feel like a lot of people, they tend to justify their worldly circumstance to ignore their relationship with the Father. So I was just kind of curious, what was your mindset during that time period? Do you feel like it had a large impact on you? Do you feel like it kind of, kept you from progressing in the way that God wanted to see?
You mean once we moved here?
Yeah.
Now, once we found Northgate Church, I was there every Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a big like lag time between.
No. I was there. I made the changes.
Okay.
And then some of the midweek services as well. I was there.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who does find it where they kind of justify that building that poor habit, right, in terms of not staying plugged into the church and things like that? How would you approach that situation if you were in their shoes, since you did kind of go through something slightly similar, but you made the adjustment pretty quickly?
What would my counsel be to that person? Mm-hmm. Okay. My counsel would be that their life is out of order. Mm-hmm. And that their hearts and affection is more away from God than it is for God. Mm-hmm. So their priorities are jacked up.
Yeah.
And they need to recalibrate their priorities.
If I'm trying to phrase this correctly. Well, let me ask you this first. When it comes to church attendance, is that something that only takes place on Sundays?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Because it's really not a matter of a church attendance. So church attendance is not the issue.
Right, right,
The issue is the heart.
right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So if your heart is set on the kingdom and God's purposes, then your heart will gravitate you toward meeting and fellowshipping together.
Right.
So then it does not become an issue of, oh, jeepers, I missed one Sunday. I need to do penance or something. That's not the issue.
Right, of course.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I was just curious because, we do hear a lot about there's specific, I'll call it sects of Christianity that says, church is supposed to be on Saturday, no, church is supposed to be on Friday, and church is supposed to be on Sunday. It's like, well, you're calling it Sunday and you're actually, worshiping the pagan god of Ra when you go to church on Sunday, and all these different things. But in reality, the day of the week really doesn't matter
Not at all.
Yeah. It just matters about you wanting to gather with the body of Christ and worship, fellowship, and learn, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all a hard issue.
All right. I like the way you describe that. That's good. So then, obviously, when you are making very resolute decisions between what you're doing professionally and what you're doing with the family and what you're doing in the body of Christ, you made those decisions very easily. And it seemed like your priorities is always, God, family, work, right? How would you say you built up that faith to have that standpoint of, hey, these are my clear lines in the sand, and I'm not going to cross it one way or the other. I'm, going to follow the Lord no matter what. Because I feel like, especially in today's world, it can kind of be very difficult to draw those lines and, stick to those, promises to the Lord and things like that. So how did you find yourself making those decisions actually pretty easy?
Well, for me, it started that very first day I got saved. Because when I got saved and I told Anna, we're not going to do this. And moved out and stayed with a friend of mine who lived in a trailer with his wife, one son, and I slept on the living room floor in his trailer. But all I knew was I've got to get a Bible from somewhere, and I have to read it. So we got a Bible. I don't remember where it came from, and I just would read that thing every single day, hours on end. So for me, the Lord just kind of started that foundation like that from day one. So I was just always in His Word, and renewing my mind. So later on in life, when it came down to making certain decisions, my default was, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? Now, I'm not saying by any means that, I walked perfectly and was, a poster child for, Christianity.
Yeah.
Because, but when it came down to, making decisions and stuff, my default has always been, okay, Lord, this is what I want, but really, what is your will? So I guess from that standpoint, decisions for me, the root of it always comes from that basis.
So with that, then how did you, because I remember us as a family, we would have times where we'd come together or pray or be gathering around the table and reading the Word. When, I guess, Aaron and Daniel, Tamara, myself, when did you and Mom kind of, come together and decide, hey, this is how we want to raise our kids? Did you have something? Because I know you, but obviously not everyone watching this knows you. Just as an example for the audience, that I'm just going to let them know this. I used to get my chores in an email in the morning, okay? I would wake up, and if I came downstairs, it'd say, Nathan, did you check your email? It's like, no, not yet. So check your email. I'll pull up my email, and here it says, Dear Nathan, here's your chore list for the day. Love, Dad. And I would have to reply to the email. It's, Dear Dad, got it. Sincerely, Nathan. Okay, that's my dad here. So when it came to, raising us, I'm sure you had a regiment in mind for how you wanted to instill, Christ-like principles into us. But then at the same time, I don't ever recall you and Mom like forcing God upon us either. Like, you didn't say, this is what you will believe or anything like that. If anything, I would describe it, you and Mom just lived the life. And of course, we still got together and prayed, went to the Bible and anything, but it wasn't necessarily a forced type ordeal. So what was your philosophy in raising all of us in how you wanted to approach that?
That was the beauty of and wisdom of your mother. Because with me being as regimented as I have been accused to be,
yeah.
If I had it my way, it would be like those emails. Guys,
read Exodus
at 0800. We're going to be here, and we're going to read from 0800 to 8:15, and then we're going to pray from 8:15 to 8:30, and then we're going. It would have been like that because I'm just so focused and hardwired that way. And your mother is not focused and hardwired that way. So,
oh man.
So because of her, it did not come across as forced and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the grace and flowing and all that stuff came from her, and the regularity of us getting together, that part would come from me. So we were able to balance out our strengths that way. And so, but again, it was mainly because of your mother that you guys probably don't hate church, don't hate God.
All right, got it. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Because I remember. I mean, I was probably so young. You brought up the story recently, but you and Mom used to let me sleep under the chairs during church service. I think this is when we're at Northgate.
Yeah, Northgate. Yeah.
So I was like 5 or 6 or something like that, and
yeah,
it's pretty young, maybe even younger. But I have just like a few of those memories, here and there, because I remember I was super shy and didn't want to go to the children's ministry. So you guys would let me hang out with you all for the most part until I got more comfortable.
Right.
So I guess I have all, I have Mom to thank for all of that.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to be to be sure. Okay, so then I'm assuming you still read every day, pray every day. What scriptures do you come back to most often, just either as reminder, as encouragement, or where do you find yourself reading just over and over again, or is it just still kind of sporadic?
It is sporadic. But one of the main scriptures that kind of keeps me going is, we live in a world, in a society where it's fast paced, hustle and bustle. People have all kinds of stresses on them. They're pulled this way to that way, and there's certain scriptures that I just have to kind of call on. One of them is Matthew 11, come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon me and learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. So all that stuff that's going on, burdens that are on people's shoulders and stuff. We just need to just come to Jesus and say, you know what, I'm carrying these burdens; they're too heavy. And you said that your yoke is easy and your burden is light. Yeah. So that's one of them.
That actually, this is a quick unofficial sponsor announcement, since you just happened to plug the verse perfectly. Right. So Landon, who I told you about, he started the Mercy's Rest, and that's all about creating sites. He wants to do multiple sites, but one's right now in LJ, Georgia, is just a way for Christians, individuals, or couples specifically to go there and unplug, and just spend that time together, spend that time with the Lord, spend that time in prayer. Right. So he's got that location active now, and I'll have the information in the description of this video. But him and I are official partners in that regard. So I'm on his website, and I'm going to be plugging him in the channel and things like that. But his motivation for the name Mercy's Rest actually came from the verse that you just quoted. So I was completely serendipitous, not planned at all. I thought that as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, wow, okay, that's cool. And I've always liked that scripture too, because there are a lot of burdens, not only just from like the worldly perspective, but just mentally.
Yeah. I mean, people are stressed out all over the place.
Right. And I think we invoke our own standards on ourselves, and a lot of times what we're repeating back to ourselves in our mind just over and over again is probably the vast majority of what's, causing these burdens that we're carrying between depression and anxiety and all those other things. And I think what you described as you were just reading the word over and over and over again and just, living through that lens probably helped with a lot of that.
Oh,
I would
please.
imagine.
Please. Yeah.
You ever have any, I guess, moments where you just felt those burdens just unbelievably and just, came to the Lord and he either, saved you from that situation or you just felt the immediate, reprieve of those burdens, after going to the Lord?
There have been times. But more lately, it's been more just faith. Because it's not a always a microwave situation. Where you have an issue, you have a challenge, you go to the Lord, and 2 minutes later, out of the microwave, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to just kind of walk in faith and persevere. And the Bible says a lot about perseverance and what it does. Persevere, develop strength, character, things like that.
That's definitely something I think right now for the younger generation is all about microwave.
Right.
They want to get in, get out, get fed with minimizing the time they have to commit into something and expecting the best result kind of deal.
Oh yeah.
And obviously the Lord knows all this was going to occur. But I guess what would be your deprogramming method in terms of helping someone along, stepping alongside them to say, hey, if we're expecting these, quick results or going after the, the blessings and start seeking the prosperity type stuff, like what would be your approach to kind of, deprogram that line of thinking when it comes to the relationship with God?
Well, I wouldn't approach it from a deprogramming standpoint. It's kind of like, it's like if you look at an airplane, right? So you have tons and tons of steel, and you can concentrate on, okay, we're going to need certain amount of force and jet propulsion, and we need a certain number of gallons of fuel, and we're going to need all this kind of stuff because we have to overcome gravity to get this plane up in the air. So you can look at it from putting all your focus on overcoming gravity, or you can just simply understand the law of lift. So you understand the law of lift, law of aerodynamics, on the law, and then the law of lift is what lifts the plane. So rather than focusing on, okay, well, gosh, I've got this problem and got to deprogram this, and it's not really about deprogramming anything. It's really about reprogramming, which is renewing the mind.
Right.
So you renew your mind, and then the answers come, as opposed to trying to figure out, well, I need to deprogram this, I need to undo this, I need to. Well, first of all, you're not going to be able to do most of those things in your own strength anyway.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So just kind of getting into the Word and approaching it more from that standpoint, some of the other things fall off.
That's one of Caitlin's favorite verses, Romans 12:2, talking about, let the Lord essentially instill in you a renewed mind. And obviously it builds on everything you just mentioned. So with all of that, you are father, grandfather, right? Husband, you've done a lot of different things. You've met a lot of different people, had a lot of different experience. What would be something that you would want to instill to me, your kids, grandkids, friends, family, something that they need to, just remember in terms of their walks and what you would encourage all of us with? What would you say?
I would say to seek the Lord first, and to truly do that. So seeking the Lord first does not mean, okay, I go to church on Sundays. That's not seeking anything. But I would say to really seek the Lord church first, and learn to, trust and wait and be patient on Him. I would say that's the main thing right there.
That's Matthew, 6:33?
Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness.
Yeah.
And everything else will be added.
Absolutely. Well, anything you want to say in conclusion to the audience, or anything at all? Anything that's on your mind? Anything that's on your heart? Put you on the spot.
No, not really. No, not really.
Yeah.
Just other than again, people have goals, they have dreams, they have aspirations. There's a lot of disappointment in this life. People go through a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of things that happen that are painful, that people don't understand. Like Anna passing away 2 years ago. That was something. It was sudden. It was unexpected. It's kind of hard to put those pieces together in your mind.
Yeah,
a lot of different things, a lot of tragedies happen. But in light of all that, the main thing is, and even if we don't understand everything that happens, the main thing is to really put the Lord first, and not to let circumstances separate us from God. A lot of times with us being, humans, things happen, didn't go our way, there's a tendency sometimes to be disappointed with God, to be mad at God, to have the enemy speak in your ear to challenge your faith.
right.
That's the time to at least have the mental awareness to say, okay, you know what? I didn't like this. This didn't happen right. This was a disaster. This was a tragedy. I don't understand why this happened. But what I do know is that God is perfect. He's sovereign. His love for me will never end. And no matter what pain I'm going through right now, I just need to seek Him more.
Right.
That's what I would say.
All right. I like that a lot. That's something I kind of talked about on the devotion last week. Just how the enemy plant these seeds, and he's just waiting for the opportunity for you to get in that mindset, in that space, to start
exactly
doubting God and doubting your faith, and he's going to come right in and try and steer you more in that direction.
Right.
And just along that vein, because I have similar conversations like these a lot. When we do get in that position in our lives, because it's a when, not an if, of when you're not walking as close to the Lord as you wanted to, and things are keeping you apart. Both worldly and internal, we have a tendency to kind of guilt ourselves into, it's like, okay, well, if I go back to Him now, like, He's just going to be even more disappointed in me. We feel like we're going to have to face ourselves to a certain degree, but I think it's important to remind people you're already forgiven,
Right.
And
right.
He's made that very, very clear time and time again. And more than anything, He wants that reconnection, but it's on us to take that step in that direction, of course, with His assistance always being there. He's never far, He's always right there next to you all the time.
Right.
So I know it's something I'm always trying to remind myself of, because we like to try and beat ourselves up, but there's no reason for that.
Yeah. Right.
And that's not a license to sin either, but
Sure.
it is just a reminder that, we are absolutely forgiven. So, okay. Well, Dad, I just want to say thank you again for taking this time. I think it's important to have conversations like these,
Sure.
especially, father to son type dynamic, because we have a lot of broken families right now.
We do.
And I just felt like the Lord was kind of pressing it on my heart for, I think almost 2 months to have this conversation, because I think it's important for men to realize that we can have conversations like these.
Right.
We can be very real with each other. And even if you don't have that kind of relationship in your own household, in your own family, there is a church who is, absolutely be able to support, young men, older men in that regard. Because I know that I have probably half a dozen other spiritual dads that I can go to,
Right.
And I'm super thankful for that, because I know that's helped me time and time again in my life. But I did want to specifically just thank you for how you've lived your life, the things you've done, the things you've instilled in me. Obviously, we didn't have the most in a lot of ways fantastical, upbringing. A lot of trials, a lot of tribulations, and honestly, there's a lot of things that I did blame you for, but after growing up, I realized it wasn't your fault at all. So I want to say sorry for that, but also just want to say that I love you and truly appreciate you, Dad, for all that you do for me.
I love you too. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. Close out. I'll see y'all in the next one.